All right, let's talk about more Xbox rumors and goings-ons and shenanigans. So, for those who haven't kept up, here's what's happened so far with Xbox that has kind of shattered faith and image surrounding the brand. There's the two price increases for the consoles. There's the failed attempt to increase games to $80, though that doesn't mean it's the last time they'll try. There's a $1,000 handheld that also makes the entire ecosystem more expensive. There's lack of exclusives and them essentially going third party. Then there's, of course, the infamous price increase for Xbox Game Pass, anywhere from 50 to 100%, depending on the region. The removal of Game Pass discounts for DLC. Then there's like reports that they want to introduce Xbox Cloud Gaming with ads, but with pretty severe limitations. And then we got rumors that Xbox might be canceling next-gen hardware, combined with reports of how Call of Duty significantly suffered in sales because Game Pass cannibalized a lot of those sales, and Call of Duty didn't lead to enough of a new subscriber base for Game Pass for that move to be justifiable, with the majority of sales happening on PlayStation. And with recent news, we got some extrapolations on some of those points. Let's start with rumors that Xbox might be canceling next-gen hardware. And for that, we first have to talk about the current state of Xbox hardware, which is that we're seeing certain outlets, certain brick-and-mortar stores like Costco and Sam's Club, removing Xbox consoles completely or ensuring that those Xbox consoles go on clearance. It is simply not something that we're seeing with Nintendo consoles and with PlayStation consoles. And as if that wasn't enough, rumors began to spread that even more major outlets like Target and Walmart might be pulling Xbox stock from store shelves. Now, the photo that Shinobi602 posted here is from years ago, but we have more current photos as shown here by Reddit users on the Xbox subreddit, with headlines like, "My local Target is getting rid of their Xbox section." The electronics manager says they will no longer carry systems, games, or accessories for that console. He also said that all Targets in the Kansas City area are purging their Xbox stock as well. Here's another individual from the gaming subreddit who noticed this as well, saying that the Target I work for is no longer selling Xbox games. On Wednesday, the Target I work for has removed all Xbox games, and I'm pretty sure it will be store-wide. All the games have been discontinued and will most likely go clearance. After all these years of selling Xbox games, it's weird to see only PlayStation and Nintendo games being sold. And then someone who works at Walmart has also seen this trend of Xbox games and hardware disappearing from store shelves. So right here we have SpaceFox85 saying the Walmart store I work at is getting rid of Xbox games too. We are doing a store remodel right now, and the new layout for electronics will have no Xbox games, and Switch and PlayStation will be condensed to one lock case each. In the year or so that I've been in electronics there, I can count on one hand the number of times I've sold an Xbox game. And there are tons of threads that are compiling reports of people who have noticed this happening in their local stores, whether as a customer or as someone who works at those respective stores. And then here we have somebody from Recent Air also compiling all of the reports from various people who have noticed that Xbox hardware and Xbox games are going away from store shelves. Now, at the same time, it's worth noting that some folks have been calling their local Walmarts and their local Targets to check and see if it's true that this is happening across the entirety of all Walmarts and Targets, but folks like Destin here have said that I just called my local Walmart to ask if they were discontinuing or pulling Xbox stock. They said, at least to my knowledge, I haven't heard anything about like clearing inventory or anything like that, or about being discontinued. And then beyond that, Microsoft themselves have provided the following statement in regards to concerns that Xboxes might be going away from store shelves, saying that Target and Walmart, among other retailers, remain committed partners for Xbox consoles, accessories, and games. So it may very well be that this is a very localized thing where certain Targets and certain Walmarts and certain storefronts for these particular major outlets are removing Xboxes. But the fact that there are enough reports of Xbox stuff getting removed from store shelves that tons of people have noticed this happening, that is still somewhat disconcerting and highlights just how far behind Xbox is and how little Xbox sells compared to competing platforms like Nintendo Switch and PlayStation. It is worth noting that there is this general trend of game consoles being sold more online, and so they're kind of disappearing more from store shelves, from your brick and mortar stores. But it does seem as though Xbox in particular is being affected more severely, while Switch and PlayStation in some scenarios have been condensed to, like one lock case each, according to this user for this specific instance. With Xbox in particular, it's being just eradicated completely from this particular Walmart. Well, there's a general trend of brick and mortar stores carrying less hardware because so much of that is sold more online, it doesn't change the fact that Xbox in particular is seeing more of a drastic effect on that front, almost as if it's something that just isn't selling well enough that it warrants existing on store shelves at all for some of these major outlets. It just kind of amplifies concerns for the current state of Xbox and whether Xbox hardware will be relevant in the long term, given that their model currently is to essentially be third-party publishers who ship their games on all competing platforms. They're pushing Game Pass more than anything, and they're saying that any device is basically an Xbox because they're pushing for Xbox being accessible on as much hardware as possible and not just Xbox consoles. And so seeing Xbox as being removed from store shelves almost highlights the kind of the diminishing relevancy of that brand as, a first-party manufacturer of hardware and software. And then there's talk of what does this mean for next-generation hardware? Right here we have Sneakers SO, who put out this report that based on what they've heard, they believe that the future of Xbox is software publishing with a significantly honed-in focus on profitable IPs, cloud gaming being the home of the Xbox platform, transitioning Game Pass into basically becoming the point of entry subscription for xCloud access, and releasing their software on any device that has a marketplace and users willing to buy their titles. And there's mention here of how plans for Xbox hardware went from being definitive to up in the air, which was really startling given that this thing was meant to be out relatively soon. And there's credence that can be lent to Sneakers SO based on the fact that Tom Warren from The Verge has said that this particular leaker knows a lot about what goes on internally at Microsoft. So the fact that those kinds of rumblings exist at all from someone who has a decent enough proven track record means that those rumors can't be entirely discounted, though Microsoft has already come out and said that they're actively working on next-generation hardware in collaboration with AMD. They came out with this announcement back in, June of 2025, where Sarah Bond came on and talked about how Xbox and AMD are powering the next generation of Xbox. And more recently, just today, we saw Sarah Bond come on Good Morning America to talk about how they're already prototyping the next generation of Xbox. Here's what she said.
Shows me their labs.
This is where the team is actually designing, prototyping, and testing for the next generation of Xbox.
So how much Xbox's word is worth is called into question because they've said so much stuff in the past about how they want to pursue certain things in the direction that they want to take Xbox, and then they've done the complete opposite. We've seen them go back on their word so much that it's just hard to trust anything that Xbox executives put out there. Anything they say is hard to just take seriously. Now, one big fumble for this Good Morning America piece that has been highlighted is that it is claimed in this segment that the Xbox ROG Ally handheld can play console games when it in reality can't because it's primarily a PC.
Has the same feel. Your thumbs are in the same place, Your trigger fingers are in the same place. Developed with hardware maker Asus, the devices have a 7-inch screen and run Windows 11, meaning that in addition to playing Xbox console games on it, you can play any PC or streamable game.
So that's really confusing messaging because when people see this, a lot of the average Joes who are not super in tune with gaming news will assume that this ROG Xbox Ally is a quote-unquote Xbox console that can play all of the digital Xbox games that were made for the Xbox console specifically, as in the Xbox Series stuff, but that stuff doesn't function on ROG Xbox Ally unless you're streaming through the cloud. It can't natively play games that were designed for Xbox consoles. What the Xbox brand is right now is already kind of confusing, especially in the eyes of your average Joes who are not super in tune with gaming news, but this will make that confusion that much greater. Some folks might watch the Good Morning America segment, then buy an ROG Xbox Ally, expecting that they'll be able to play the games that they've purchased for Xbox Series on the go, and then realize that they can't actually do that because that's just not something the device is capable of. But going back to the segment where Sarah Bond confirmed that they're prototyping the next generation of Xbox, we have to discuss what this hardware will actually look like because it is not the conventional next generation console you might think. Right here we have a report from news outlet Video Games Chronicle published on October 13th, 2025 that compiles some reports from various insiders who have managed to get information from sources about when we can expect next-generation hardware from both Sony and Xbox, but the kind of path that they're taking is actually quite divergent. PlayStation 6 apparently is set currently to come out in 2027, and it'll be a traditional like next iteration of PlayStation that is a console dedicated experience with exclusives, just the traditional model. But when it comes to Xbox, things are rather interesting in terms of what their plans are for this next-gen hardware, because it is not going to be just a console. It is essentially going to be a PC console hybrid. According to Moore's Law is Dead, AMD is developing an APU called Magnus that's going to power the next-gen Xbox console that is described as essentially a cheap device for a PC, but expensive for a console. That is also going to be targeted for a 2027 release, and we might see PS6 and next-gen Xbox come out relatively, within a short window of each other. But the real interesting thing to note is this quote right here that highlights how the next-gen Xbox will apparently be significantly more expensive than the PlayStation 6 because it'll also have an APU that is significantly more powerful, because the intention of this next-gen Xbox is to be a console PC hybrid, whereas PS6 is going to be just a straight-up console. Here's a quote from Moore's Law is Dead, quote, "It should be stronger than the PS6, but at the same time, it'll also be more expensive because of their larger size and its use of bridge dies, and likely a larger RAM capacity compared to the PS6, at least if it wants to work well as a PC console hybrid." So I feel like Xbox is trying to blur the lines between Windows and Xbox, and I think we've already seen a glimpse of that with the ROG Xbox Ally, which runs Windows but has an interface that is more akin to what you'd expect in a console environment. It is at its core a PC, but they've added a front end that makes it easier to navigate with a controller setup. So maybe they'll take a similar approach with this next-gen Xbox, where it isn't going to be a dedicated console with its own dedicated UI and operating system, but rather it'll be essentially a Windows PC with a front end that allows it to almost serve as a faux console. There's a PC with very specific specs that also happens to be able to do all the other PC tasks because it's running on a version of Windows that is dedicated to allowing both console functionality and PC functionality. But that also means that it's going to be more expensive to make those capabilities possible because the hardware has to be more powerful. Whereas PS6 will be cheaper and entirely built around it being the best gaming device possible that can be optimized to the maximum for gaming, while also being able to keep prices down so that it can be affordable to the mainstream audience. Now, there's something to be said about Xbox being able to offer a powerful PC that runs really well and that challenges the gaming PC market, because a lot of those gaming PCs, especially the pre-built ones, are sold at such a high price point. But if Xbox were to disrupt that by shipping their next-gen hardware, their next-gen Xbox, as a PC console hybrid that does all of the PC things and games really well, but at a significantly cheaper price point than, your pre-built devices from other manufacturers, then that's a market that could expand. It could make PC gaming more accessible for the masses. But at the same time, you have to wonder if that will ultimately still appeal to a more niche, more hardcore gaming audience. When you're trying to appeal to the masses, to your average Joes, to the mainstream audience, you have to keep those prices lower, and that's the strategy that PS6 is going for. Whereas with Xbox's next-gen hardware, that'll be a console PC hybrid. While it's a cool concept, will it actually be able to be competitive enough in terms of pricing, especially compared to PS6, that it'll be able to sell on a level that will make this endeavor worthwhile and financially tangible and financially tenable, especially when this PC console hybrid will ultimately lack exclusives. And a big point of contention in the past when it comes to, announcing new consoles, the new generation of consoles, has been who has the best pricing, who offers the best overall value while offering an experience that is still good enough for gaming. I feel like PS6's strategy of trying to keep prices lower will serve it significantly better than Xbox trying to go for a jack-of-all-trades kind of device that ultimately will be more expensive, especially with Xbox not committing to exclusives that will make that purchase more compelling. If you want to build a powerful gaming PC, might as well go all in and get the best hardware that will completely future-proof you. And then if you want to get a console, might as well get something cheaper like the PS6 that will have all the Xbox games in it, because Xbox is basically publishing all of their games on all competing platforms. And it will still offer a really good gaming experience with really good visuals, with great optimization, because the PS6 hardware was specifically designed for gaming, and it's got a singular spec that, developers can build around. Here's how Moore's Law is dead put it. The way I look at Magnus versus the PlayStation is that they have roughly the same performance, but will give PC gamers stuff they would appreciate that could outperform the PS6, but probably only in scenarios PC gamers would care about. Here's another quote where he talks about how the frame rate difference between the PS6 and this next-gen Xbox could be that, the next-gen Xbox can offer 20% higher frame rates, but that will be good for more kind of like PC gaming audiences, for people who use monitors that can do, 144 frames per second instead of 120 frames per second that a lot of TVs get to be limited to. But ultimately, for the masses, for the end user, the difference between PS6 and this next-gen Xbox will be negligible as far as like having a great gaming experience with good graphics is concerned. This next-gen Xbox will appeal more to hardcore audiences, but at the same time, that hardcore audience is compromising both on the PC front and on the console front, because it is a less powerful PC than you could build, and it's also more expensive than your traditional console. The one potential disruption is, again, the gaming PC market. So as, Moore's Law is dead put it here, let's say that Asus wants to sell you a pre-built PC with an RTX 4070 in it for $2,500. You can't get away with that if this Xbox console, that's also basically a PC hybrid, is out there running some version of full Windows 11 and actually has an RTX 5080 or better raster and possibly around RTX 5090 ray tracing performance. So the only good outcome out of this is that it might lower competitors' PC prices, since what Xbox is offering here with this PC console hybrid is going to be, really powerful and really good value for that power, but still going to be more expensive than your traditional console. So yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting scenario that we're finding ourselves in here, speculating about the next-gen Xbox and the different approach that it's taking. It'll run Windows that you can run applications on, you can load up Adobe Premiere Pro and edit videos on it, which is something you can't do on the PlayStation 6, while also being able to game, but that comes with a cost. It comes at an expense that may not be justifiable for those who just want an Xbox to game, and so might opt for PlayStation 6, a gaming-specific device that still offers great graphics and great performance, but it's just cheaper and actually has exclusives and actually has all of these things going for it that really give that ecosystem and platform just a lot of value that Xbox has lost because of how expensive it is to get into Xbox as an ecosystem due to the myriad price increases, whether it's the consoles, whether it's Game Pass, you name it, and just the lack of exclusives that, will sell consoles and will make people gravitate towards the next-gen Xbox, especially at a more expensive price point than something like PlayStation 6, which, that being the dominant console right now, you have to outdo them on that front. But Xbox doubling down on more power and additional PC functionalities, I just don't feel like doubling down on hardware that is more expensive, even if it offers more functionalities that are non-gaming related. I don't feel like that is the way you'll win back people who have kind of decided to move on from Xbox and pursue other platforms like Nintendo and PlayStation, which have really compelling hardware and software, exclusive software, games in particular, on offer. Now, this is all assuming that any of this is true. This is all rumors and speculation, but all of this information is from insiders who have been right about stuff in the past. So there might be some validity to these rumors. At the very least, it's worth paying attention to this stuff and contemplating what this could mean for the future of Xbox. But we'll only find out in time when official announcements are made about the next generation of Xbox hardware and, the next generation hardware for competing platforms as well. But as far as Xbox is concerned, if this strategy is the way that they're going, while there are aspects of it that are really compelling and how it can disrupt the gaming PC market, in terms of its impact as a brand, as a first-party publisher of hardware and games and software, I don't know that this strategy will move the needle for them and allow them to garner dominance when competing platforms like PlayStation and Nintendo are doing so much better. I don't feel like this is the thing that's going to bring them back. But I don't know. That's just me. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on all of these latest rumors surrounding the next-gen Xbox hardware and what you think about just the current state of Xbox in general. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.